Voting starts Monday for one of the most powerful political positions in Texas.
You're setting the conservative agenda for this entire state.
This week, we're digging deeper into the race for Attorney General.
The big thing is carrying on the legacy of challenging Washington, challenging federal government overreach.
We speak one-on-one with all the candidates.
We will be helping people live their best lives, not persecuting them, not picking winners and losers.
Making their case to Texans in their own words.
With the imperative that government has to work for everybody, and I think that has broad appeal.
As voters prepare for a crucial runoff election.
I think the Democrats have a weird candidate.
President Trump weighs in on the race for U.S. Senate and puts a spotlight on Democrat James Tallarico, how a taco run with Barack Obama sparked an unusual political attack.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Early voting starts Monday in a runoff election with high stakes for Texas politics. The Republican race for U.S. Senate between John Cornyn and Ken Paxton is getting the most attention, but millions of dollars are also pouring into the race to replace Paxton as Attorney General. Whether you're watching our program on television or streaming online, there's a pretty good chance you'll see an ad from at least one of the candidates. This week, we want to give you the chance to hear from each of them, Democrats and Republicans, in their own words. It's a crucial race. The Attorney General is one of the most powerful political positions in Texas. The AG defends state laws and agencies in court and often serves as the legal face of Texas in high-profile national fights. The Republican runoff pits Congressman Chip Roy against State Senator Mays Middleton, and recent polling shows Middleton has the edge. Earlier this month, the Hobby School of Public Affairs at the University of Houston surveyed 1,200 likely runoff voters. The results show Middleton with a 9-point lead over Roy. The poll's margin of error is just under 3%. Roy called the poll flawed and noted that they surveyed voters before he launched a campaign ad blitz across Texas. We caught up with the congressman at a campaign event. He discussed his vision for the office and what sets him apart from Middleton.
Difference is, number one, experience, being in a courtroom, having prosecuted criminals, put them behind bars. And then number two, wearing the battle scars of having been in the cauldron, been in the arena, in the toughest decision making you can have in Congress and working with the president and delivering. I've been out there at the forefront, the tip of the spear, delivering on the border, the tip of the spear as President Trump's ally in delivering on the Save America Act as the lead author, the tip of the spear on the issue of the Islamification of Texas. I've been first and front and center on calling Islam what it is, a political ideology that is inconsistent and incompatible with Western civilization. And I've introduced all of the bills in Congress to fight it, co-founded the Sharia Free America Caucus with Keith Self, a fellow Texan. So I think when I go across the state of Texas, people are responding that they want somebody who's got the proven battle scars to fight for them as a conservative, who's a real lawyer, who's been in court, and is standing up on the issues that matter to them, which is making sure criminals are off our streets, making sure that we stop the Islamification of Texas, we stand up to secure our border, and importantly, that we stop the corporate ownership of Texas. I want to make sure Texans own Texas. I want to stand up against data centers coming in and just running amok and taking power off our grid. We need to have somebody who's going to stand up for all of Texas on all of these fronts. We're a state that we want to be able to see, economic growth and prosperity, but we also want to protect water, protect our grid, and protect our landscape. I've got people that I represent in Central Texas that don't want to see transmission lines, blowing up their ranches. I got people that don't want to see a lack of water, and they certainly don't want to see the price of electricity going up because data centers are sucking off the grid. I don't think we're doing enough to force these data centers to make sure they are self-reliant in terms of power, self-reliant in terms of water. They can generally do that. You just got to hold them accountable to that. As Attorney General, I'll be ensuring that's the case. Hey, we're all for economic growth. We got to do it the right way. I don't want to have, bright lights destroying the night sky in rural Texas. I don't want to have water disappearing in the grid getting destroyed without these guys ponying up to make sure that they are making sure they've got the power and the water they need themselves. And importantly on AI itself, that we're not preempting state law. Look, Attorney General Paxton has been great at challenging the federal government and challenging those that are attacking Texas. Got a great settlement out of Google, protecting our kids. Look, I worked with Ken. I was his first assistant. I know that office well. I ran it for him, 4,100 employees. And I think there's been so many great things that it's been doing. I think there are things we could improve upon. I think we need to be more aggressive on going after NGOs and nonprofits and understanding where their money's being spent and how it's being used against the people of Texas. I think open records, open government. I think the Open Records Division could be a little more efficient, a little more effective to ensure that the media and that people across the state of Texas are able to get access to information. It's really critically important to be able to hold people accountable. And the Child Support Division needs to always be improved. Better technology, quicker payouts getting out to our kids, making sure it's fair to kids, but also fair to the moms and dads in terms of being equitable there. So a lot that you do as the Office of Attorney General, but the big thing is carrying on the legacy of challenging Washington, challenging federal government overreach, defending Texans, and I would be proud to do that.
The frontrunner in the race is pushing back on criticism that he's not qualified for the job.
And I'm the only one that has that executive level experience of signing the front of a paycheck and knowing where the buck stops.
We speak one-on-one with Mays Middleton, why he says his record shows he's the top candidate for the job. And Texas Democrats have a runoff of their own on the ballot. We'll meet the candidates and show you how they're highlighting different approaches and hoping to win votes. Mays Middleton got the most votes among Republicans in the March primary for Attorney General, and polls show him leading in the runoff for the Republican nomination. Capitol reporter Adam Schwager spoke with Senator Middleton at length. Here's part of that interview, starting with Middleton's response to questions from opponent Chip Roy about his legal experience.
Well, it's nonsense. Of course I'm a practicing attorney. I have been for years, since 2008. And go back to 2013, right? Ken Paxton, he was a civil attorney, just like I am. But that's not why we supported him. We supported him for Attorney General because of that proven conservative record. That's what matters the most. And this is an executive level world, right? A district attorney, they're in the judicial branch. The AG's office is in the executive branch. It's 4,000 employees, 750 attorneys. You're setting the conservative agenda for this entire state. And I'm the only one that has that executive level experience of signing the front of a paycheck and knowing where the buck stops. Look, government doesn't have any money. This is all taxpayer money. And look, this is someone that I'm running against that's worked for government nearly his whole life. He has spent a career, 10 years, fighting against President Trump. Actually, he even said that President Trump committed impeachable conduct.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the relationship with the president as it comes into this race. I know a lot of ads for you on TV talk about MAGA, Mays Middleton. You mentioned some of the opposition that Chip Roy may have had in the past to the president. He hasn't made an endorsement in this race. Have you talked to him about potentially trying to convince him to weigh in on your side?
Well, I'd be honored, of course, to have his endorsement. And President Trump is the greatest president we have ever had. In fact, he called me a MAGA champion, and President Trump said my conservative record is second to none. Hardly anyone, nobody has fought harder for America and has sacrificed more. How many times have they tried to kill him over the years, to assassinate him, all because he is fighting to put America first? And look, Chip Roy, on the other hand, he has repeatedly opposed the president and worked for anti-Trump organizations. He campaigned against the president as hard as he could in 2024 to try to defeat him in the primary. And thank God, Chip Roy was not successful in opposing President Trump in that election, and he won decisively and won decisively again in November of 2024. And that mandate and boldness is alive and well here in Texas. This is it. Look, the reason why this fight is so important is we don't have another Texas to move to. And I am not retreating from Washington, D.C. because I'm never going to Washington, D.C. I have always known that the fight is right here in Texas.
What are your thoughts on the way that the Attorney General's office is currently run by Attorney General Paxton? And what things would you want to keep the same? What things would you might want to change?
Well, General Paxton has been a courageous fighter for our conservative values. You look at the victories that we've had in the last few weeks. One of them was the Ten Commandments case, right? I have that on my lapel right here. where we restored the Ten Commandments in classrooms. And you look at the spiritual battle that really is, where James Tallarico, right, he's running for U.S. Senate right now, and he says he's a pastor. And he said the Ten Commandments was unchristian and un-American to display in classes. Well, you know how I responded to that? I donated Ten Commandments posters to the schools in his district in his honor. Now, he didn't like that very much, and thank God we won that case before the Fifth Circuit. Also, SB 4, another priority of mine, that is the state's deportation law. It allows the state of Texas to charge illegal immigrants with illegal entry and return them to country of origin. That was another huge victory that we had. Of course, the redistricting case was another massive victory where the big, beautiful map, that's what I call it, is in effect. Of course, we drew 5 more Republican seats in Texas, and we need to continue to win those fights because, look, the left is trying to destroy our state.
There is much more to our interviews with both Middleton and Roy. We posted our unedited conversations with the candidates on our website. We have the links in this week's State of Texas story. While the Republican runoff for Attorney General is drawing attention and millions in campaign spending, Texas Democrats have a serious decision of their own. We go one-on-one with the Democrats facing off in the runoff, how they're making their case to voters. 2 presidents and the race for U.S. Senate. How a stop for tacos put one candidate in the spotlight and highlighted a unique line of attack on the campaign trail. You've seen how the Republican runoff for Attorney General is drawing a lot of attention and millions of dollars in campaign spending, but Texas Democrats have a serious decision in their own party runoff. Voters will decide between State Senator Nathan Johnson and former Galveston Mayor Joe Jaworski. Adam Schwager spoke with both candidates. We want to let you hear from each of them as they make their case to voters in their own words, starting with Joe Jaworski.
So to reintroduce yourself to our audiences, who is Joe Jaworski and why should these runoff voters vote for him to be the Democratic nominee?
Adam, I am the progressive choice between the two. It's a binary choice at this point. Senator Johnson represents the compromise with MAGA. And, you know, my view is, you know, he has a record in the Senate that speaks for itself. Voting to ban pride flags, voting to limit SNAP benefits, voting to limit free speech on campuses, voting to require American citizenship to vote, which we already knew. It's already in the Constitution. So my question to Senator Johnson is, why give oxygen to a MAGA agenda if you're a Democrat seeking to be the Attorney General? What I want voters to know is I am a former mayor of Galveston who fought hard to rebuild my island. So we all know that all politics is local. This is something that's missing right now in the Office of Attorney General, an appreciation of city councils, county commissioner courts, school districts. Ken Paxton has been a persecutor of local government, but Texas is made on local governments. So I am the only candidate of the 4 left standing, the 2 Republicans and the 2 Democrats, that has 8 years of local power and decision-making authority, and I know how to softly exercise that. Also, I am a 35-year trial attorney in Texas. None of the other candidates can touch my experience, and I think that what people want is a lawyer, someone who understands who the client is, and I do.
What are some ways that you would try to combat some actions the Trump administration is doing here in Texas?
Well, I want voters to know and hear straight from me. My relationship with the Trump administration will be hostile. I have no reason to believe they're going to correct themselves after a sound beating in November 2026. In fact, it's going to be much more like, you know, a caged animal who desperately realizes, you know, it needs to lash out. And so the good news is I am equipped to handle bullies. I've been doing it for a long time, for 3 decades in state and federal court, and I'll have a lot of help at the Office of Attorney General. Viewers know that there are literally over 4,000 employees, most of those non-attorneys, but there's close to 1,000 attorneys at any given time. It's the state's largest law firm, and we will not let Donald Trump abuse Texas any longer. I also am looking forward to serving with a Democratic governor and lieutenant governor. In the event that doesn't happen, I will be fair but firm with the Republican leaders in this state.
Jaworski will face Nathan Johnson. He's a Dallas attorney who beat a Republican incumbent to earn the position he currently holds in the Texas Senate. He spoke with Adam and outlined his pitch to voters.
This is a two-person race. Where do you see the main differences? We talked to Jaworski yesterday. I think he was trying to paint himself as further left than you. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't bother trying to, I don't know where Joe Jaworski is. He hasn't been in the legislature. He talks a lot on social media. I stand by my record. I've been a proud, strong Democrat. I've stood by my Democratic principles. I've gotten in every fight there is to get in as a Democrat. But at the same time, if people want to say that I'm not super far left because I managed to pass 135 bills in 4 sessions in the legislature, because in addition to fighting with Republican colleagues, I actually work with my Republican colleagues. People can use whatever label they want. I think I was elected to get some work done, and part of that means fighting for values and sometimes losing, sometimes winning, and part of it means figuring out how do I actually get work done while I'm here. And that's been my approach, and it will be my approach in the Attorney General's office.
3 decades of a Democratic drought here for statewide office in Texas. Who has the best chance of winning in November? Do you think that person is you, and why?
Oh, I definitely think it's me. And in fact, an endorsement came in from the San Antonio Express and the Austin American-Statesman just in the last few days. Both of them cited my broad electability. You can predict who's more electable in November. I actually, if you look back to my history, I flipped a Republican seat in 2018. It was supposed to be a -12 district. I won it by 8 points, and part of that was through a huge Democratic surge, and part of it was disaffected Republican voters saying, I'm really sick of what my party's doing. That guy seems serious. That guy seems responsible. I'm going to give him a shot. I have a history of that. I've managed to prove it in the legislature. I think we'll pull significant Republican crossover. I think we'll give confidence to the independent cohort of voters while maintaining and actually increasing the enthusiasm on the left. I want all the votes across the spectrum, and I think I have a history of being able to relate to a wide swath of people with the imperative that government has to work for everybody, and I think that has broad appeal.
If you were to win this role, there would still be 2 years left of a Trump administration. How would you handle that?
You know, I hope Donald Trump improves and breaks the law less often than he does. It seems a pretty routine act. I prefer not to spend all my time as Attorney General suing the Trump administration, but we have, fortunately, another 24 Democratic attorneys general around this country. I will be working together with them to try to stem the rampant abuse of power at the executive level. And I want to emphasize on that point that it's not just Democrat versus Republican stuff. It's really about preserving constitutional foundations. Donald Trump and his administration have flagrantly and brazenly and repeatedly ignored separation of powers, abused power of the executive. That is not good for the future of this country, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or something else. These foundations were set up on purpose, and part of suing the Trump administration, which I will be doing, is not just blocking his bad policies, but preserving constitutional foundations.
There is much more to our interviews with both Johnson and Jaworski. We posted those unedited conversations on our website. Just look for the links in this week's State of Texas story.
I know them both very well. I like them both a lot.
President Trump gets asked to weigh in on the Republicans in the race for U.S. Senate, but hear how his answer ended up putting the spotlight on the Democrat in the race. We are one day away from the start of early voting in the runoff election, and much of the focus is on the 2 Republicans running for U.S. Senate. We've told you how the race between John Cornyn and Ken Paxton is getting nationwide attention. On Friday, reporters asked President Donald Trump if he planned to endorse a candidate.
Where are you on the Texas Senate race?
Well, I'll maybe make a decision. I know them both very well. I like them both a lot.
That statement's not a surprise. For months, the president has avoided endorsing one candidate over the other. He said he believes either one can win in November, but then he pivoted to talk about the Democratic nominee, James Tallarico. The president highlighted speculation over whether Tallarico is vegan. That's a claim some Republicans have made to say that he's out of touch with Texas values. So why is that coming up on Air Force One? Okay, first a little background. On Tuesday, former President Barack Obama came to Austin. He met with Tallarico and the Democratic nominee for governor, Gina Hinojosa. It happened at the Taco Joint, a restaurant near the University of Texas campus. All three of them ordered tacos. Tallarico got 2 potato, egg, and cheese breakfast tacos. Simple enough, but it got the attention of Governor Greg Abbott, who posted on social media about vegetarian allegations against Tallarico. That brings us back to Friday morning with the president claiming Tallarico is vegan.
I think the Democrats have a weird candidate. 6 genders, a real hit on Jesus. I mean, this guy is bad news with his mask from relatively recently, and he's a vegan, all of a sudden he's not a vegan. He was a vegan, now all of a sudden he's not. Texas doesn't like vegans.
Tallarico has answered claims that he's vegan before, at one point posting a picture of himself eating a turkey leg at the Texas State Fair. So why does the line of attack keep coming up? Some Republicans have posted video of a speech he gave to a group of animal rights activists in 2022. He told the group that his campaign back then was, quote, a non-meat campaign that only bought vegan products. He also said reducing meat consumption was the right thing to do. Tallarico was asked about it earlier this year on a podcast. He told the audience his campaign now, quote, basically runs on barbecue. Count on us to get to the meat of the story. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.